What's up? This is Javier.
Yo, this is Tosin Abasi from Animals as Leaders, and you're kicking it with 8747 Productions.
What's up, everybody? It's Big Brian here, 8747 Productions. We're with a couple of members of Animals as Leaders. We've got Tosin and Javier. Thanks for sitting down with us again. It's been like 2 years since last time we talked. And the last time we talked, we got a lot of information from Tosin, but we're going to be excited to get some of the your side of the story as well this time. You got a new album, The Joy of Motion. We talked off camera. You spent some time with Misha again, recording some songs, and you also worked with another guy, Diego. And how did you guys come across him?
Diego's just a friend of ours. He's also in a band called Volumes, and he's a really good engineer. And we'd always talked about potentially just like doing some demos with him, see what it would sound like. And we really came up with some cool material. This is our first time collaborating with him, but it was really fun.
Cool. And when you guys go in, it was a different setup for you. You guys have experience recording now. You know, did you do the same thing? Did you go direct, or are you playing with room and amps? And how are you guys recording?
We did a kind of combination of it. We actually did a tone match of our actual rig. And then for the rest of once we had that actual tone match, setting, we used it for the album, going direct. We didn't have to go in the studio. We did go to the studio for the drums. We actually have real drums this time around, which was, pretty cool for it helps it sound pretty unique,
And yeah, last time we talked, you programmed pretty much all the drums. You and Misha, I think, is what you said last time.
Album one, Misha programmed all the drums. Because, there was literally no band. It was me with a bunch of guitar riffs and Misha as a producer, and he kind of filled in the blanks. Second album, the drums were partially programmed and partially executed on an electronic kit by Naveen, and he produced it. For this third album, it's the first one where the drums were fully acoustically recorded traditionally. And even the guitar tones, even though they're direct, they are a tone capture of our live rigs, and it's uncanny how realistic it sounds. And just the mix in general, I think, is the most organic mix that we've had out of all of the albums.
Right, and that's going to naturally come. You put mics up on a drum kit, you have the room mics, so you actually get some natural depth that occurs there.
Yeah, and honestly, it really creates a sonic sort of environment. The roomy drum sound, it sounds like we're all playing in a room. And our producer, Nolly, he engineered the drum sessions, and he also mixed the album. And he just has a really good ability of retaining what comes in to tape, as opposed to, doing a ton of work afterwards. He's just really focused on like capturing good performances and good tones. So it sounds like us, like truly.
Cool. And last time that we talked, you talked about always progressing, and you don't fit neatly into a box, and you guys come up with these crazy riffs. You come up with this, you're playing 8-string guitars, and a lot of people look at that and say that's a little bit wild, but you guys execute it really flawlessly. How do you guys work on continuing to progress as musicians each and every time you work on a new album?
We're always, we're fans of our instrument. We're always trying to get better. And I think, for Tosin, he's big on techniques, and he's always building his riffs off of that. So I think the riffs, they come off of growth. There's always a level of trying to do new stuff. So,
Yeah.
You want to add anything?
It's more of continuing to learn and being open to being influenced by new music. So there's a lot of new music that I've been really inspired by, and it's not often metal, and a lot of times those outside influences really give you fuel for creative, progressive metal ideas or whatever the case is. But I think it's just listening to where you are when you're writing, because with this particular album, we felt like we had less to prove in a way. Like, as a guitarist, I feel comfortable with like a lot of what I've displayed thus far, but with this album, I wanted to focus on things that I felt like I haven't been conveying. So there's just differences in how I'm phrasing my leads, and just various things like that. I'm drawing from different genres of guitar playing. that are just, I consider it progression, even though it doesn't seem more complex or it doesn't seem more, whatever.
Right. Still back. Sometimes I think people think that progressing means getting faster, it doesn't always mean that, because you could be an excellent, picker, but then you could go learn fingerstyle techniques, and that would totally change up everything you know about playing the guitar. So let's talk about your rigs real quick. You said you matched your rigs. How are you guys, what are you using live, and what's your rig, and what we're using in the studio then to match?
For live, what we're using is actually our Port City amps and cabs, and that we're actually using that for just stage volume. For what you hear in front of house and what we're getting in our monitors is actually the direct tone. We're using that tone match block on our XFXs,
Yeah.
So it gives the benefit of having that live sound and still our own rig.
Right.
Yeah, we're basically, it's the best of both worlds. Because when you go direct, there's a level of clarity, and I feel like the response, we're literally playing through the PA. It's not like a signal moving the speaker, which is moving the diaphragm on a mic, which is sending the signal to the board, which is then sending it to the PA. It's like we're literally playing through the PA, and it's milliseconds, but there's a level of articulation and clarity that I think is as a result of that. But then on stage, we are just gratified by having like rumbling cabinets, because why not?
It helps with all sorts of variables. Sometimes you get to a stage that had all sorts of bass, and your microphone can all of a sudden start moving, and it sounds different in your ears. So this allows for us to have a good consistent tone and not have to worry about that problem, but still have that live tone.
Yeah. Cool. And then kind of wrap up this interview with you guys' thought on like the current state of the music industry. Artists' album sales are dropping, and people are having these big fights going on with Spotify and other companies aren't paying out the royalties. What do you guys see as kind of what needs to happen in the music industry from your perspective, and then what are you guys doing to try to stay on top of things as it seems like everything's going on the decline?
There's no simple answer to that question. I think it is the dust has yet to settle. I think the traditional music industry is totally in a panic and in flux. So there's a lot of angles as far as piracy is concerned. Our band initially, I think we benefited from piracy because it was just like our music was propagated for free. There's no barriers, and on the merit of the music, it was shared, and on the availability of it being free, it was accessible, and that just kind of feeds itself. But there are a lot of traditional artists who were benefiting from income on the original business model of like go to Best Buy or whatever and buy a CD. And they're probably extremely like upset about it. Record industries are downsizing. Record labels are downsizing. It's really just like, I think this is not the only time it's occurred. I think when VHS came out, it like upset the film industry. I think when compact disc came out, now you can't even buy a tape if you want to. So technology creates these paradigm shifts, and especially with media. So what I think is going to happen is there's going to be new ways of monetizing as an artist. Like, I think people are really voluntarily buying music, and I think it's kind of cool. Like we'll have fans who have pirated our CD, but then they come to see us in Salt Lake City, and they buy all 3 CDs and a T-shirt, and they pay the ticket price. And it's this voluntary participation, but it's kind of cool. Bands like Radiohead have done this, like, the album is up, donate what you want. And I know there are people who pay 3 times the cost of the CD just voluntarily. So it's an interesting perspective on consumerism. Like, given an option, how does that affect the consumer's behavior? People still buy our CDs. I think they love what we're doing, and I think that's why they do it. But it's helpful to be more known if there's like a percentage of our fans who never paid for the music, but they're still fans. That could show itself monetarily in various different ways.
Cool. Grab that back. Well, that was it. I couldn't have said it any better. Obviously you've done a lot of thought and thought about that for a long time. Again, thanks for coming out. It's Big Brian with Tosin and Javier from A747 Productions with Animals as leaders, and we'll see you guys next time.